we
Okay.
going? Okay.
Yep.
We won't take quite as long this week, I think. I don't know. By the time I get done talking, it might be. We're still on the Gosha is the Supremacy of the Law. It's from Teachings for Victory, Volume 1. It's the third Gosha, and tonight we're going to read Part 2. Okay? Part 2 starts on page 131. We'll be repeating as we go along the section of the Gosha that's actually being referred to and quoted. So I won't read what's in this big gray box because we're just going to hit it again in a second as we go through it. This is really, do understand that as we read this, we are really reading a new interpretation and understanding of the Buddhism of sowing as it relates to the Buddhism of sun, which is really what the Soka Gakkai is referring to their basis of understanding and practices at this point in time. I found out something this week that I was not aware of because I don't keep track of that sort of thing. But they've actually, in 2014, I don't know are you aware that the Soka Gakkai rewrote all of their bylaws so that they even now reject Nichiren Shoshu doctrine. So if you're studying something from 30 years ago or 40 years ago, you're really not understanding it in the way that Daisaku Ikeda is trying to teach us today in a contemporary form. And that's really kind of what I constantly try and do, is to read all of these things so that everybody can see and hear that Daisaku Ikeda is not saying, be my disciple. I haven't read that yet in anything that we've read over all the course of all these years. This is sort of like, you want to be like Mike, then be like Mike. Yeah, this is what I've done. This is what you need to do as well. But there's nothing about the mentor-disciple relationship that I see him putting out in regard to his teaching that says, I'm the only mentor. You're all going to always be disciples. This is really about the mentor trying to create disciples that become mentors. Do understand that. This isn't just for you. If you're not sharing this with other people at some point in time in the future, then you really haven't understood why we're going about trying to read and understand this now. Okay? So with that having been said, let me go back to the lecture starting on page 131 of Teachings for Victory, Volume 1. We continue with Part 2 of the Supremacy of the Law from President Ikeda. Through the power of faith in the mystic law, those who have suffered the most can attain the greatest happiness. Now, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean, that they can attain the greatest happiness? Because the difference in their life and their circumstance and everything else is so incomparable to somebody that's already got it made and got it knocked and doesn't have any struggles. Somebody that struggles and comes up and wins is a much greater victory than somebody that didn't have to struggle and does not have that point of reference of what it is to actually suffer in daily life. Okay? Because everybody suffers in daily life to a different degree, right? It's all reflective of your karma. Okay? So the more you suffer, the more you're able to reverse that completely by attaining Buddhahood in your present form, the more of a victory that would be as it relates to the experience experienced. Everybody's with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So good for us that have suffered. It is a pretty cool thing, though, when you've suffered and you've reversed it in your life. When you've done human revolution, it's an awesome thing. Right. He goes on. Nichiren Buddhism enables those who have triumphed over hardship and adversity to become inspiring leaders who can help many others. Because what does that pain and suffering allow you to do as a human being? Relate firsthand to the pain and suffering of other people. It's not a story that you hear it's not in your lexicon of experience. Okay? And you should really view, based on dependent origination, all of your sufferings. Because why are you experiencing what you're experiencing? Because you've made the cause to. Right? And we talk about turning karma into mission, okay? Which is the more contemporary way of saying Ganken no Go, deliberately creating the appropriate karma. we actually functionally do, in that those experiences that bring us that great suffering are the same experiences that allow us to become highly qualified leaders, teachers, people that can help others escape that suffering and lead them to a path, not that we read about, but that we've lived ourselves. We're the living example of the encouragement that we share with people. Do you understand? We're not looking at somebody else's recipe and trying to say, boy, this guy really knows it, you should listen to them. No, you're able to actualize it in your own life and express it as a first-person kind of thing. It makes it a completely different reality for the person you are encouraging, because you really do understand what they're experiencing. And what comes out of your life in that moment will be the Buddha wisdom that you've drawn forth through your practice and diligence to be able to express to them an expedited process, an expedient, so to speak, so that they can make their way more quickly than maybe you had to. All right? So he says, again, Buddhism enables those who have triumphed over hardship and adversity to become inspiring leaders who can help many others. Nichiren Daishonin sought to enable all of his followers to become genuine practitioners of the mystic law. And what's the operative word there again in that sentence? Genuine. When he doesn't just say helps them to become practitioners, he says he qualifies it as something that has to be in accord with the actual process and teaching that allows you to accomplish that. Okay, you have to be of the same mind as Nichiren. Essentially, that's what he's talking about. A genuine practitioner is somebody that's taken the vow that they understand the bodhisattvas of the earth take to uphold the law in the latter day and to establish Kosen Rufu. So what's Kosen Rufu?
Widespread.
Yeah, widespread propagation. It isn't about you attaining Buddhahood and suddenly becoming a cool-ass dude because you're enlightened. Okay? You only attain Buddhahood for the sake of making all others equal to yourself. That's the only thing Buddhahood's good for.
Yes.
Okay? So he says, Nichiren sought to enable all of his followers to become genuine practitioners of the mystic law. And of course, that's the entire function of everything that Daisaku Ikeda is doing now. He's helping you become a genuine practitioner by instilling you the deeper understanding that's necessary for you to perceive that you probably would have great difficulty or a great amount of time before it would occur naturally to you. Okay? So he's lending the experiences of his many, many decades and also his practice under President Toda and understanding from President Toda, from President Makaguchi, to share this with us so that we can expedite this process and actualize it as not something that's theoretical or a maybe. It's a definitive reality and an absolute reality that we experience in our life. He says, he lived among the ordinary people, Nichiren Daishonin, just as we do, just as President Ikeda does, and endeavored to foster authentic disciples capable of realizing happiness for themselves and others. So again, what are authentic disciples? That's the key word. Why does he keep calling genuine practitioners? Now he's saying authentic disciples. He's not just talking about people that go to freaking meetings. Okay? He's not just talking about somebody that got to go Honzon. Okay? He's talking about people that are on the path to Buddhahood or have actualized Buddhahood in their lives, sharing that reality with others in a manner that doesn't create a circumstance where they're perceived as something different or better, but something completely equal, and they're an inspiration. They're a path forward. Their experience becomes the person that's suffering's experience. Okay? So he says, he lived among the ordinary people and endeavored to foster authentic disciples capable of realizing happiness for themselves and others, because that's the only way that you are an authentic disciple. If this isn't for yourself and others, if the Jigyo Keita part isn't there, if this is all just mind candy for your own, sense of self-fulfillment, you're not going to get there. You'll get to what you think is Ichinen Sanzen, but it'll be theoretical Ichinen Sanzen. It won't be. It'll be an understanding only for you. You'll be a Prakyeka Buddha. You won't be a real Buddha. Okay? So he says, this letter, the supremacy of the law, that's only the 8th world, by the way. That's not even the 9th. The supremacy of the law is infused throughout with his compassionate wish that its recipient, Nichimyo, and her daughter, Otto, lead truly happy lives, and toward that end develop the strong faith that would allow them to resiliently weather any challenge presented by the evil times in which they live. Now, we live in evil times as well. So what's significant about that? Why do we go through all this stuff we go through every Wednesday? And why am I reading this to you? Why am I trying to share my understanding predicated on my relationship with my mentors? It's, again, if you want to make it to 50 years of practice, resiliency is part of the deal. You're going to face difficulties, and you're going to face tough times, and you're going to face things that challenge your faith in an effort to try and defeat you. You have an inherently fundamental darkness. We all do. It's the flip side of fundamental enlightenment. Just like we're Buddhas in our present form as our original state, that same fundamental darkness is part of that original state. So there's no way to escape or skate through what's involved in becoming a Buddha in your present form. So this resiliency is the deep level of faith that it cannot be affected by the circumstances of the moment. Ever. Right? Because what happens when you face those difficulties in that moment? You go to the Gohonzon and you start uniting your life with the original state. That's the whole point. Okay? You always go back to the Gohonzon and chant Daimoku. You haven't attained some sort of state of wisdom so that you don't have to chant Daimoku, you don't have to engage the Gohonzon. That's the only way to survive it. The resiliency is really nothing more than the wisdom to constantly go back to the Gohonzon, to constantly go back to square one. Is everybody with me? Okay, good. So when I'm gone, you guys will all remember this to tell others, I hope, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's presented by the evil times in which they live. The Daishonin's words also paint a vivid image of how sincerely Nichimyo had striven thus far in following his guidance and devoting herself to the path of faith. That's another key sentence. I'm sorry I keep pausing, but these are, you could just read this very quickly and blow right over that. But again, devoting herself to the path of faith. Okay? That's not casual practice. Do you understand? That's seeking Buddhahood for the right reason and achieving it. All right? For Nichimyo, top of the second column on page 131, for Nichimyo and many of Nichiren's other woman followers, the answer to such fundamental questions as what is the correct way of life and how can I lead a truly meaningful existence was to advance together with this great teacher of Buddhism who, despite momentous obstacles, because don't forget, he's facing the shits all the time he's talking and encouraging everybody, all right, remained steadfast in his principles and convictions because he never wavered in those. That's the sign of the true teacher that he was. In this and numerous other writings, he unstintingly commends the faith of his female disciples. Now, who else was doing that at the time? Nobody. Not talking to them from the perspective of that they could attain Buddhahood or that they were as respect-worthy as a Buddha as they existed. Okay, so he says, such praise is no doubt inspired by his fervent hope that each, without exception, would enjoy a happy and victorious life and achieve Buddhahood in their present form. That's what a happy and victorious life really refers to whenever it's used in this manner. He says, my mentor, Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda, used to say, and this is something that I say too, not because I got it from Josei Toda, but I've always felt this way. Women are the future of salvation for this planet. Okay? In government, in everything, in every way. Okay? Really. And in my experience of this Buddhism, it's the women that have held the Soka Gakkai together. All right? So he says, my mentor, Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda, used to say, when mothers everywhere are happy, we will have true peace in the world. I share exactly the same sentiment, and I do as well. President Kate is saying, I share exactly the same sentiment, and Tom is saying, I do as well. And I have consistently acted with the belief that the alliance of Soka women leading happy and winning lives will have a profound impact on the world and contribute to the creation of a new age of women, which is coming. It's coming right now. Okay? Page 32, top of first column. He says, this part of my lecture on supremacy of law will focus on the essentials of faith Nietzsche outlines in order for us to be victors in life, and experts in the art of happiness, to attain Buddhahood in our present form, and to function as people that can help others in a genuine and meaningful way. Continuing on page 132 from the Gosho. And it's titled, this section is titled, Victory Lies in Striving with the Same Commitment as Our Mentor. And again, when he says as our mentor, he's talking about Nichiren Daishonin. He's not talking about himself or whoever's your current teacher. This is going back to the original teaching. Women, this is from the Gosho, women regard their husband as their soul. Without their husband, they lack a soul. Nowadays, even married women find it difficult to get along in the world. Though you have lost your soul, you lead your life more courageously than those who have one. Furthermore, because you maintain your faith in the gods and you revere the Buddha, you are indeed a woman who surpasses others. Certainly the heavenly gods will protect you, and the 10 demon daughters will have compassion on you. Continuing with President Ikeda's lecture below that on page 132, first column. Women regard their husband as their soul. Without their husband, they lack a soul. He's going in parentheses. He's saying what the Daishonin just said in that section. He says, writes Nichiren Daishonin in 13th century feudal Japan. So this is all relative to the time, just like it will always be relative to the time. Soul here, Daisaku Ikeda explains, can be interpreted as meaning support, mainstay, or sustenance. Epidemics and famines were rampant throughout the land, and the threat of a second Mongol invasion loomed over the populace. It must have been arduous for Nichimyo to survive amid these troubled times without a husband to support and protect her. Yet she did not give in to self-pity or despair. Undaunted by circumstances, she applied herself steadfastly to her Buddhist practice just as Nichiren instructed. So there's no female that's in a worse shape kind of situation that's beyond their ability to turn it around. All right? They don't need a guy. You are indeed a woman who surpasses others, he extols her. I believe these words of praise for Nichimyo can also be taken as inspiring encouragement for all women, practitioners, he qualifies again, women practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism, not female believers, women practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism. He assures Nichimyo that if she continues to earnestly chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, she can overcome all suffering and negative karma and go on to write a triumphant personal history. And these are not his only words of praise for her, noting that she has journeyed to visit him during his exile on distant Sado Island amid a time of intense persecution that saw many other followers abandon their faith. He exclaims, "It was almost too amazing to be true." Not only did Nichimyo travel to Sado, but because of her seeking spirit and desire to repay her gratitude, after Nichiren was pardoned from exile and subsequently took up residence at Mount Minobu, she also visited him there. Nichiren warmly confirms that because of her sincere devotion, the protective forces of the universe will safeguard her and compassionately watch over her without fail. So where does her protection come from? Herself.
Yes.
Okay? It's not Nichiren saying, I will protect you, or I'll order up some gods to protect you. He's saying it's the sincerity and action that she's taking in her life. It's her faith, as you said. All right? And then he goes on and says, the depth of our commitment to faith is revealed at a crucial moment. The touchstone is whether, when it really counts, we continue taking action in the same spirit as our mentor. Or do we curl up in a ball and feel sorry for ourselves and doubt, why is it like this? Why aren't I being protected? Okay? It's because you obviously need to improve your faith.
Yes.
Okay? Viewed from the perspective of Buddhism, Nichiren's exile to Sada was simply a devious plot by hostile forces to drive a wedge between him and his followers. Devilish functions always seek to divide the forces of the Buddha. The Soka Gakkai is the community of believers accomplishing the Buddha's intent and decree in the modern day. Throughout our history, we have faced countless schemes by malevolent forces bent on breaking the unity of mentor and disciple. But such onslaughts, in fact, ultimately served to show who genuinely shared the mentor's commitment. No one would have thought that I'd be preaching Daisaku Ikeda to you right now, 30 years ago. This was the case during World War II when the Japanese militarist government cracked down on the activities of Soka Kyoiku Gakkai, or the Value Creating Education Society, forerunner of the Soka Gakkai, and jailed our first president, Tanesaburo Makaguchi, while one after another of the top leaders of the organization betrayed and deserted Mr. Makaguchi. So through my own personal experience, I've already said I've got leaders that, Titan people that professed they were upholding the vow that did not uphold the vow. Okay? So you really can't be qualified that you've done that until the last moment of your life. Because I've seen people go Titan after 30 years. Okay? Because they just didn't see what they thought they should have seen, rather than following the teaching and allowing themselves to see what they would be able to see if they never gave up. Again, it's all about never giving up, never giving in, never letting those devils defeat you. That'll rob you from the ultimate reward. Okay? Nothing else can. Only you could screw yourself. Okay? He says, Josei Toda alone remained a loyal disciple to the end, sharing with him the ordeal of prison. So everybody else bailed. Later on the second anniversary of Mr. Makaguchi's death, gazing tearfully at a photo of his deceased mentor, Mr. Toda voiced these now famous words, and we've read these before, but again, this was his conviction to President Makaguchi. He said, "In your vast and boundless compassion, you let me accompany you even to prison. The benefit of this was coming to know my former existence as a bodhisattva of the earth and to absorb with my very life even a small degree of the Lotus Sutra's meaning. Could there be any greater happiness than this?" In other words, I couldn't have, without that difficulty, without that experience that I was only willing to experience because I felt so protective of you, master, mentor, okay? That's what came out of it. Mr. Toda demonstrated how it is possible to triumph over all devilish functions, all adversity, when we devote ourselves to Kosen-Rufu with the same spirit as our mentor. Such efforts also enable us to develop an expansive state of life overflowing with good fortune and benefit. And I have to say, that's true. It would seem evident from Nichiren's dedicated commitment to practicing the mystic law alongside Nichiren that she placed complete trust in him as a true teacher of Buddhism and a person genuinely fighting for the welfare and happiness of all humankind. In other words, she treated him as a mentor. She had faith in his teaching. She didn't qualify, I wonder if I agree with you. I don't know, let me think about that. Do you understand? There's a huge difference. Somebody's not your mentor if you can think that way. If you have to requalify what they're saying, they're not a mentor. Mentors are expedient means individuals in your karmic path. They're the ones that accelerate your ability to actually pull off doing this very difficult thing in a single lifetime. All right? This was the case during World War II when the Japanese militarist government crack down on the activities of the Soka Kyoiku Gakkai, or value-creating education society forerunner of the Soka Gakkai, and jailed our first president, Tsunesaburo Makaguchi. Remember when I read from the Human Revolution, and President Toda's talking about how almost none of the people from Makaguchi's time are still around anymore?
Right.
And he kind of goes, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Why do you say that? Because he knew that they weren't true believers. All right? They had not actually viewed Makaguchi as their mentor. He was an associate. He was a smart guy. Knew some stuff maybe they might agree with. Okay? There's a difference. All right? He says, while one after another of the top leaders of the organization betrayed and deserted Mr. Makaguchi, Josei Toda alone remained a loyal disciple to the end, sharing with him the ordeal of prison. Later on, and again, was that because he had such a profound belief and understanding in the teaching? No, it was strictly because Mr. Makaguchi wouldn't say, okay, let's go home. And all Makaguchi had to do to get out of jail was say, okay, I'll take that Shinto talisman and I'll apologize for what I've said publicly. That's all he had to do to get out of jail. It wasn't like he had committed a crime and they'd send him to a specific amount of, like you got 10 years or something like this. This was to put him in jail to keep his mouth shut, to keep him away from anybody else hearing what he had to say. All right? Later, that's at the bottom of page 133, first column. Later, on the second anniversary of Mr. Makaguchi's death, gazing tearfully at a photo... No, I'm going over here. Pardon me. How did I get mixed up here? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go at the top of page 133, second column then. Mr. Toda demonstrated how it is possible to triumph over all devilish functions, all adversity. Where am I? Who's reading this text instead of something in it? Where am I on the page? Because I looked up at, am I here? Here? I'm over on this side. Okay, I'm right there. Okay, thank you. I'll go to the head and repeat that. Mr. Toda demonstrated how it is possible to triumph over all devilish functions, all adversity, when we devote ourselves to Kosen Rufu with the same spirit as our mentor. Such efforts also enable us to develop an expansive state of life overflowing with good fortune and benefit. It would seem evident from Nichimyo's dedicated commitment to practicing the mystic law alongside Nichiren that she placed complete trust in him as a true teacher of Buddhism and a person genuinely fighting for the welfare and happiness of all humankind. The women of Soka are carrying on the noble spirit of faith exhibited by Nichimyo. Nichiren says, "Though no one else came to me to visit me, you, a woman, not only sent me various offerings, but personally made the journey to see me. In terms of our activities today, this is comparable to solidly uniting our hearts with our mentor and realizing victorious achievements on the grand stage of Kosen Rufu. The mentor-disciple relationship is not defined by physical distance. It ultimately comes down to the commitment and actions of the disciple, because that's what determines it. You know, the mentor is not a mentor unless there's a disciple that's viewing them as a mentor. Page 134. Buddhism is about winning. From the Gosho again. The Buddha promised in the Lotus Sutra that for women, the sutra will serve as a lantern in the darkness, as a ship when they cross the sea, and as a protector when they travel through dangerous places. Furthermore, human beings have two heavenly gods who always accompany them, just as a shadow follows the body. One is named same birth and the other same name. Perched on one's left and right shoulders, they protect one by reporting all of these deeds to heaven. Therefore, heaven never punishes those who have committed no error, let alone people of merit." Continuing with President Ikeda's lecture on 134, first column. Based on a passage in Former Affairs of the Bodhisattva Medicine King, the 23rd chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren Daishonin explains that the sutra will serve as a lantern in darkness, a ship when they cross the sea, and a protector when they travel through dangerous places, emphasizing that it alone teaches that women can attain enlightenment. Another passage in the Medicine King chapter describes a profound benefit of the Lotus Sutra as follows. It can cause living beings to cast off all distress, all sickness and pain. It can unloose all the bonds of birth and death. How wonderful it is to encounter the Lotus Sutra. How immense are the benefits of practicing it. Now again, does he say, how immense are the benefits of believing in it? No, he's talking about, again, practicing. So this is all about the action of your daily life, day to day, never giving up for the whole time you're practicing your whole life. Actually, the benefits described in the Medicine King chapter are not limited to women. They apply to all living beings. In this letter, Nichimyo, however, Nichiren especially adds for women. In this letter to all, they apply to all living beings. In this letter to Nichimyo, however, Nichiren especially adds for women. These words convey his wish to warmly encourage Nichimyo, giving her confidence that, in light of the sutra, her future happiness is assured. Buddhism is the foremost ally of all those who are suffering. Next, the Daishonin refers to the heavenly gods, same birth and same name, who, according to Buddhist lore, they're not real, according to Buddhist lore, reside from birth on a person's shoulders. They keep a constant record of that person's good and bad deeds and take turns to report to heaven. Since one or the other is always keeping track, their records are detailed and precise, and because of their constant reporting, there is no chance for omission or evasion. Nichiren is therefore, through this, talking about this Buddhist lore, this same birth and same name, all right, Nichiren is therefore confirming to Nichimyo that the heavenly deities are fully aware of her meritorious actions, large and small. So, because what? Is there somebody keeping a score? Is there somebody viewing and saying, oh, that's a good guy, that's a bad guy? No, it's all about karma. This is all talking about the karma that you actually create moment to moment and that you express moment to moment. It's the simultaneity of cause and effect. He goes on. How does he explain this? He says, the law of cause and effect is strict and impartial, just as if there were two dudes always reporting every damn thing you do. Okay? So it's the equivalent reality. Do you understand? It's the equivalent reality. What we do, the actions we take and make for ourselves are very strict. There's nobody that forgives us for those things. Once we create them, they're created. Only our actions can reverse that cause. Okay? Through another cause that offsets it. Do you understand? There's no God that's listening to us. Beseech and forgive me for all the bad shit I did, and we don't get anything for it. We're just forgiven. You know? Do you understand? We're not Catholics.
No.
All right. So the law of cause and effect is strict and impartial. What's it? Why is it impartial? How is it impartial? Because it's exactly the same no matter who you are. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, what color your skin is, where you live, where you were born, what your last name is. The law of cause and effect is strict. It functions exactly the same for all human beings, and it's impartial. And it functions exactly the same for all human beings. All right? Cunning and deviousness do not get one far in the realm of Buddhism, because you can't get over. Cause and effect will come back to bite you in the ass. For sure. I know for a fact. You can't fake it. That's why I'm trying to share this with you. Sincere, honest efforts, on the other hand, will all return to us in the form of good fortune and benefit. But again, it's sincere and honest efforts. Not BS for the show, for the game, for the audience, acting like you're somebody that you're not. Trying to behave, make people think that you're somebody that you're not. Do you understand? This is all about honest, sincere efforts. All right? Will all return to us in the form of good fortune and benefit. Those who have striven earnestly for Kosen Rufu. So now why is he qualifying that again? I got all these adjectives are in here that you can just blow over. This has nothing to do with going to meetings. This has to do, what state of mind are you at the meeting in? Why are you at the meeting? Is that because those are the only friends you have? Sometimes that gets to the point where it's a social situation.
Yeah.
All right? It's not really about Kosen Rufu. It's not about establishing world peace. It's not about attaining Buddhahood in your present form. It's to be around other people that are like-minded, that you feel comfortable and nice around. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not exactly what he's talking about when he's saying, striven earnestly for Kosen Rufu. That's not begrudging your life. That's what that means. Earnestly striven. Okay? Striven earnestly for Kosen Rufu will absolutely be protected. So if you're bitching about not being protected, you have to be really honest and critical of your own actions and your own mindset. Are you happy talking all this shit? Or are you really doing your best to live it? It's not like you have to be perfect, but you have to be doing your best.
Yeah.
Okay, do you understand?
Yes.
It can't be happy talk. It's a real thing because causality, which is what's governing that good fortune and protection, is strict and impartial. It'll see right through any games or even shortcomings of wisdom. If you're not chanting Daimoku, your head's going to get screwed up and you're going to think you understand things that you don't.
Yeah.
All right? So again, responsible, dedicated people will certainly be rewarded. So he quantifies it again. Responsible, dedicated people will certainly be rewarded. Those that aren't may not be rewarded in the way they think they should be rewarded because they gloss over these words and they don't really take to heart what those adjectives are qualifying. You follow? They think there's an automatic, I'm part of a club. I joined the Soka Gakkai Club. Now I'm going to become rich. Okay? I'll never have a health problem. All my problems will go away as soon as I chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo a few times. No.
No.
All right? This is about being a bodhisattva of the earth. Throughout his writing, Nichiren emphasizes that inconspicuous efforts or struggles of which no one else is aware will definitely produce benefit. Those hours that you may spend in front of the Gohonzon, or those hours that you may not spend in front of the Gohonzon. That's what's going to produce the result. All right? For instance, he says, unseen virtue brings about visible reward. From the farther the source and the longer the stream Gosho. What is hidden turns into manifest virtue from the three kinds of treasure Gosho. And though one's trustworthiness may at first go unnoticed, in time it will be openly rewarded from the 4 virtues and 4 debts of gratitude Gosho. During the years I spent working for Mr. Toda, I devoted myself to countless behind-the-scenes struggles. When he faced the greatest adversity, I supported him in ways of which no one else was ever aware. Because of those efforts, I often couldn't attend Soka Gakkai meetings or activities. Sometimes, wouldn't you all assume he was always there every time? No, he's going to say here and now. I said, some top leaders callously remark, Ikeda's quit practicing. Fellow Soka members, judging President Ikeda's faith back in that day. What was he doing for President Toda? Probably working up late, helping him support his business. Okay? But I wasn't, he's saying first person, President Ikeda, continuing with the lecture, but I wasn't swayed in the least when those assholes badmouthed me. Because I was confident that supporting and assisting Mr. Toda would lead to the advance of Kosen Rufu. Not that Mr. Toda would like me more, or that maybe I could turn around his business. It's always about Kosen Rufu. And the Kosen Rufu is the will of Nichiren Daishonin. First, foremost, and almost singularly. We all participate in that. One day, first column, page 135, one day, as I waged this solitary struggle, Mr. Toda said to me with a bright glint in his eyes, Daisaku, Buddhism is about winning. Let's fight like men, giving it all as long as we live. Life is eternal. Evidence of our dedicated efforts will definitely appear in some form in this lifetime. Now that's when the shits were going on too. You know it. When he said, when we were these struggles, okay? That was some serious stuff. President Toda's business was completely upside down and he was being attacked by a lot of people because what was the business that he had that went upside down? Do you know? It was a co-op. It was a money thing. Okay, it was like, what do they call those things where everybody puts their money in, and I can't think, but there was financial involvement included in that. Okay, this was not just a publishing business. He had done several things. What do they call those things? Savings and loan, a savings and loan kind of a thing, a savings and loan kind of thing. All right. So he says, so there was a lot of people that were pissed off and talking and bad mouthing him, and he got everybody's money, all of their money back. By the way, just so you know. Now I understand that it is exactly as he said. The words of this great teacher of Kosen Rufu are free of error. The causes for tremendous actual proof manifested as the present global spread of Kosen Rufu can be found in my selfless struggles as a youth to develop our movement. And I can state unequivocally that everything I am or have achieved today is the good fortune and benefit resulting from having done my utmost to support and protect Mr. Toda. Such is the realm of Buddhism. So if you think that the fast way to get there is to attack Daisaku Ikeda, I don't think it will work out for you. My wisdom says no, that's not the right way to go. Okay? The teaching of the Lotus Sutra constitute a direct path by which ordinary people of deep seeking spirit can obtain absolute happiness. So again, more adjectives. Deep seeking spirit. Not a casual approach. Not being there because that's where all your friends are. Not casually glossing over what the teachings, what's being put out there for you to be able to read and to grow from. Looking at each word, parsing the meaning to understand the deepest truth of what's being represented by what's being written. He's saying, the teachings of the Lotus Sutra constitute a direct path by which ordinary people of deep-seeking spirit can attain absolute happiness. How inspiring Nichimyo must have found Nichiren's explanation of the great and unmistakable benefits of practicing this sutra. Practicing this sutra. Continuing on page 135. The spirit of always moving forward from the present moment, which we must carry forward till the last moment of our life, no matter how far we've already advanced. From the Gosho. That is why the great teacher Myolo stated, the stronger one's faith, the greater the protection of the gods. So long as one maintains firm faith, one is certain to receive the great protection of the gods. I say this for your sake. I know your faith has always been admirable, but now you must strengthen it more than ever. Only then will the 10 demon daughters lend you even greater protection. The closer you get to achieving actual Ichinen Sanzen, the more difficult those obstacles are going to be. So you have to constantly strengthen your faith, because what you're going to have to surmount is going to constantly be a greater challenge. It's not going to be an easier, simpler one. All right? He says, continue on page 135, citing a passage from the great teacher Myolo, Nichiren Daishonin emphasizes that those with firm faith in the mystic law are certain to be protected by the Buddhist gods. This is an assurance that the protective forces of the universe will safeguard all who devote themselves to Kosen Rufu with unshakable commitment. Now, about this protected by the Buddhist gods, though, what's actually being accomplished in that function, in that reality? Citing a passage from the great teacher Myolo, Nichiren Daishonin emphasizes that those with firm faith, creating appropriate karma, in the mystic law, appropriate karma, being created by their actions, are certain to be protected by the Buddhist gods. It's actually their karma that's protecting them. They're protecting themselves because they've created that causal relationship. Yeah. All right? This is an assurance that the protective forces of the universe will safeguard all who devote themselves to Kosen Rufu with unshakable commitment. Top of page 136. Buddhist scriptures describe the mind as changing 8,004,000 times in a single day. This suggests just how changeable the human mind can be. Right? Our life condition changes moment to moment, can blow us away from having all the confidence in the world to being, oh shit, what am I going to do? Right? What keeps that consistent and straightened out? Chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. This suggests just how changeable the mind can be. The mind can also be swayed by evil influences. Only chanting Daimoku will save you from that. It is extremely difficult to forge a mind that will remain constant amid the tempests of fundamental darkness or ignorance that rage in the polluted latter day of the law. So what did he just warn you about? If you think you can do it without Daimoku, just based on how you feel in your faith and all your good happy talk, you're convincing yourself you're doing the right thing, but you don't chant, it's going to be really hard for you to pull that off. Okay? Let me read it again. It is extremely difficult, Daisaki. He's not saying it's impossible. You may still win in that situation, but boy, did you just make the odds much more difficult for you to achieve it. It is extremely difficult to forge a mind that will remain constant, steadfast, doubt-free faith amid the tempests of fundamental darkness or ignorance that rage in the polluted latter day of the law. Firm faith or courageous resolve to persevere in upholding the correct teaching is therefore of vital importance, which would include chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. Okay, that's where that firm faith is actually demonstrated. It's not about believing, it's about doing. We cannot move the heavenly deities to action, create the appropriate karma that is reflected, therefore, in our lives, with a weak or passive attitude in faith. All right? The protective workings of these benevolent universal forces arise in response to prayers and actions infused with an unwavering determination to win and never be defeated by hardship. That's Mugi Washin, that's doubt-free faith, and that's also living your life as a bodhisattva of the earth, as an original disciple of the original teacher with a mission to help achieve Kosen Rufu through the widespread propagation of the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's all that is. That's exactly what that is. In the above passage from the Supremacy of the Law, Nichiren tells Nichimyo, I say this for your sake, because he's already handled. Right? What I'm telling you is so that you can benefit from what I already know from my own experience. That's what a mentor does. He is already well aware that Nichimyo is a woman of strong faith because she already came all the way to Sado Island. But he takes this opportunity to teach her the key to establishing an even more unassailable Buddhist practice. What does he mean by a more unassailable Buddhist practice? One that the functions of fundamental darkness and devilish functions doesn't have an effect on. You immediately go to the Gohonzon and you blow it away. All right? That's what he's talking about. First, he pays tribute to her commitment to seeking the correct path of Buddhism, which has been clear in her actions so far. He writes, I know your faith has always been admirable. He then gives her this guidance, but now you must strengthen it more than ever, because the closer you get to Buddhahood, in your present form, the more this is going to be a challenge. Nichiren in no way implies here that Nichimyo, who has shown herself to be a dedicated disciple by visiting him at both Sado and Minobu, lacks seeking spirit or gratitude. He urges her to strengthen her faith even more in order to teach her a cornerstone of Buddhist practice, which is the spirit always moving forward from the present moment. That's what this is all about. That thing that has to be always in play for the rest of our life. And I just lost my spot by changing that page. Where am I? Even more than today, right here? Yeah, where I got the 5 stars. Yeah. Further today than, okay. I'm going to go. Nichiren in no way, bottom of page 136, first column. Nichiren in no way implies here that Nichimyo has shown herself to be who has shown herself to be a dedicated disciple by visiting him at both Sado and Minobu, lacks seeking spirit of gratitude. He urges her to strengthen her faith even more in order to teach her a cornerstone of Buddhism, a cornerstone of Buddhist practice. This, in other words, is the spirit of always moving forward. I should have just kept reading. This, in other words, is the spirit of always moving forward and continually growing. Further today than yesterday, further tomorrow than today. That never stops. That's an important point. All right? You never have attained Buddhahood, and so now you're the Buddha. That isn't Buddhahood. Okay? That is not Buddhahood. That's your own ego. Nichiren Buddhism teaches the mystic principle of the true cause, meaning that a fresh cause can be made at each moment and emphasizes the present and the future. No matter how admirably we may have exerted ourselves in our Buddhist practice in the past, 20 years ago, back when we were doing youth division activities or whatever, if we allow our efforts to grind to a halt in the present, as they do for many people after decades of faith, because they think they already know all there is to know, we will eventually stop growing in faith. As the saying goes, not advancing is regressing. So again, this is emphasized because it's very important. Because if you think that way, you'll fade into like idle. You won't keep advancing, and you will have regrets, and you'll have misunderstandings about what the truth is toward the end. All right. Of course, people sometimes cannot be as active as they'd like due to illness or the infirmities of old age. And circumstance sometimes place restrictions on people's efforts for Kosen Rufu. They've got a job and 16 kids, whatever. This is all about doing the best you can, not begrudging your life. But irrespective of our situations, he continues, the important thing is not to slacken in our resolve. This is about what's in your heart. If we do, we cannot be said to have the firm faith that Nichiren proclaims is so necessary. So again, this is all an admonition to make sure that you're able to achieve what you've been promised that you can achieve. No matter how hard we might have struggled in the past, if we stop practicing, then all our efforts will have been in vain. In the latter part of this letter, too, he urges Nichimo, strengthen your resolve more than ever. Indeed, we find such encouragement throughout his writings, an ever-fresh resolve and unflagging dedication. This has been the Soka Gakkai spirit since the pioneering days of our movement. Forward, forward, ever forward. This is the motto of Kosen Rufu, top of page 137. Having firm faith means bravely confronting adversity, not retreating under any circumstance. Not retreating under any circumstance. Those who are weak and indecisive at a crucial moment cannot hope to bring forth the protection of the heavenly deities. Okay? And that weak and indecisiveness is when you crumble and you start doubting, and you're not going straight to the Gohonzon and chanting Daimoku. Because if that's what you do, those feelings will be defeated through the power and the force of the Gohonzon itself and your faith. Okay? So this is the way you always defeat them. Those who are weak and indecisive at a crucial moment didn't go to the Gohonzon and chant. And because of that, they cannot hope to bring forth the protection of the heavenly deities. I added a little bit there, but that's the clarity that I want to add to that paragraph. The great teacher Tentai discusses the importance of strong resolve using the following analogy. If the lord of a castle is resolute, his men will also be confident. But if the lord is faint-hearted, his men will be fearful and anxious. No matter what daunting hardships we face, and he says no matter what, we must keep pressing forward. We must keep doing as the best we can. We must forge ahead with the determined to strengthen our faith day by day and month after month. As Nichiren exhorts as Nichiren exhorts on persecutions following the page. In the above passage, I keenly sense Nichiren's great compassion for Nichimo's welfare. Precisely because of their tumultuous times, he wanted to teach her the true essence of faith so that she could lead a life of absolute victory. She could win in a Tatsunokuchi moment. Okay? She could express her Buddhahood as a living being. He wished for all his followers to become genuine disciples, people of invincible and indestructible faith. What did he just say again? What was the true key word there? I'll say the sentence again, see if you pick it up. he wished for all his followers to become genuine disciples. Genuine disciples. And as such, they are people of invincible and indestructible faith. That means they're genuine disciples. That's how they express that. Bottom of page 137. Self-reliant disciples taking initiative to spread the correct teaching. From the Gosho. You need not seek far for an example. Everyone in Japan, from the sovereign on down to the common people, without exception, has tried to do me harm. But I have survived until this day. You should realize that this is because, although I am alone, I have firm faith. Nichiren Daishonin says you need not seek far for an example. In other words, he confidently asserts that he himself is the perfect example of a person, an ordinary person, who practices the mystic law with the same firm faith that he's encouraging others to, and is unfailingly protected by the heavenly deities as a result. Do you follow? Mm-hmm. He's saying the same thing that protects me is the same thing that protects you. All right? The same actions that I take that form that protection for myself are the actions you must take for you to be able to be protected by yourself. Ever since submitting on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land to the country's most powerful figure in 1260, Nichiren had encountered life-threatening persecution. He had written his treatise of remonstration out of the wish to relieve the suffering and misery of all people of the latter day of the law. But from that time on, he says, everyone in Japan, from the sovereign on down to the common people, without exception, has tried to do me harm. The entire populace was turned against him and clamored for his death. Nevertheless, he managed to survive. What is the reason for this? He clearly explains, because although I am alone, I have firm faith. I do what I'm supposed to do at the crucial moment. My mind is always on the goal. This passage deeply resonates in my heart, President Ikeda says, because that's the truth for all of us. That's the win or lose. That's the win or lose of your daily life. Because although I am alone, I have firm faith. The Daishonin stood entirely alone, outnumbered by hostile and antagonistic forces. Yet he declared that victory is not decided by numbers, but by one's own heart or resolve. His statement, because I have firm faith, which was backed by the conviction of his experience, encapsulates several key ingredients of faith. These include an unwavering commitment to the great vow for Kosen Rufu. An unwavering commitment to the great vow for Kosen Rufu. So you're not looking forward to your retirement and vacation at the end of your life. All right? The courageous and vigorous determination to fight against evil and wrongdoing. Not being afraid to speak up for what's right and calling out truth when you see truth. And calling out bullshit when you see bullshit. And the spirit of compassion to lead others to enlightenment. Not being enough for you that you make it, that the only reason you do it is because you want to bring others with you. Because of his strong faith in the Lotus Sutra and his dauntless, lion-like courage, which he encourages us to have, lion-like courage, Nichiren could emerge triumphant over all obstacles. If we do the same, if we behave the same, if we have the same mind as Nichiren, we shall as well overcome and triumph over all obstacles. How reassuring, President Ikeda continues on page 138, how reassuring Nichimyo must have found the Daishonin's invincible conviction. By attributing his survival to firm faith, he may also have wanted to communicate to his disciple the powerful and infinitely noble potential residing in the depths of each person's life. One reason he describes his own struggles in his writings, I believe, is his wish for the emergence of, once again, what did he say? Genuine disciples. He makes that distinction over and over and over again. There's a reason for it, because there's such a thing as a disciple who thinks they're a disciple, but they're not really a genuine disciple. Their actions reveal that to be fact. For One reason going back to the top of that paragraph, one reason he describes his own struggles in his writings, I believe, is his wish for the emergence of genuine disciples of unwavering resolve. People that'll see it through to create Kosen Rufu. Throughout, he calls on followers to strive in the same spirit as he has. That's the same mind as Nichiren. In sharing details of his own struggles, Nichiren shows us not only that he's an ordinary person, but that if we emulate his spirit and efforts, we can develop the same dauntless state of life as ordinary people ourselves. Okay? The Buddha's great wish is to make all persons equal to me without any distinction between us. That is to help everyone gain the same enlightened state of Buddhahood he has attained. This reflects the Buddhist view that all people possess the same boundless potential as the Buddha. There's no separation. It's delusion or enlightenment. They're two sides of the same coin. They are not two different things. Buddhism, a teaching of universal enlightenment, which means it's a teaching that everybody can do this, everybody has this potential, everybody has this innate nature, began with Shakyamuni's decision to stand up alone and share with others the truth to which he had become enlightened. Likewise, the widespread propagation of the mystic law in the latter day began with Nichiren standing up alone and declaring the establishment of his teachings, which I would think is qualifying that there's a distinction between Shakyamuni and Nichiren's teaching. Frankly, obviously. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is how that, after that comma. So let me say that again. Likewise, the widespread propagation. So let me read that whole paragraph again, because we're talking about Buddhism of harvest, and then we're making a distinction of Buddhism of sowing. Buddhism, a teaching of universal enlightenment, began with Shakyamuni's decision to stand up alone and share with others the truth to which he had become enlightened. Likewise, the widespread propagation of the mystic law, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, right, in the latter day began with Nichiren standing up alone and declaring the establishment of his teaching, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And the Soka Gakkai began with the first three presidents united in the bonds of mentor and disciple, each standing up and taking personal initiative to spread Nichiren Buddhism. During their respective periods of leadership, the Soka Gakkai reactivated the flow of Kosen Rufu because it is stagnated and it was not growing. And Nichiren Shoshu was the smallest of the 5 schools. The school that perceived Nichiren as the original teacher. During their respective periods of leadership, the Soka Gakkai reactivated the flow of Kosen Rufu, secured the foundation for future development, and brought about the brilliant flowering of worldwide Kosen Rufu. Because they got enough coin that we can do Kosen Rufu if we never raised another dime, frankly speaking. To share the same spirit as our mentor means to take action and strive in our Buddhist practice with the same standalone spirit as him. This constitutes true oneness of mentor and disciple. Nichiren sought to foster admirable self-reliant disciples who would persevere in spreading the mystic law, whether or not others joined them. Nichimyo must have been deeply moved by the Daishonin's encouragement in this letter and inspired to deepen her commitment to strive with a standalone spirit for Kosen Rufu. Buddhism teaches the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Nichiren exemplifies how our inner resolve or determination at each moment plays a powerful role in bringing about victory. A courageous, resolute spirit is contagious. Courageous people awaken courage within others. In the next passage, Nichiren indicates that the entire country of Japan had become infected by fear. Continuing on page 139, and I'm almost there. The central role of women in building peace, from the Gosho. If a boat is handled, at the top of page 139, if a boat is handled by an unskilled steersman, it may capsize and drown everyone aboard. Likewise, though someone may have great physical strength, if he lacks a resolute spirit, even his many abilities will be of no use. In this country, there may be many wise people, but they cannot utilize their wisdom because they are governed by foolish leaders. Pardon me. At that time, when the Mongols attack again, those who declared that they would not see or listen to me will join their palms together and take faith in the Lotus Sutra. Even the adherents of the Nimbutsu and Zen schools would chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Pardon me. While encouraging Nichimyo, going on with President Keita's lecture, through to the end, almost to the end. While encouraging Nichimyo with the profound hope that she would stand up confidently on her own and forge ahead with strong faith, Nichiren Daishonin also directs his gaze at the societal state of affairs. Here he castigates the country's incompetent ruling officials, highlighting, based upon leadership philosophy and ideals found in the Lotus Sutra, how leaders ought to behave. Faced with an imminent second Mongol invasion, the land was filled with despair and fear. How could Japan steer clear of this impending disaster? First, Nichiren says that if the person at the ship's helm is unskilled at sailing, everyone on board may lose their lives. Next, he says that if people are faint-hearted, then no matter how strong they may be physically, they cannot make full use of their abilities. In this way, he seeks to drive home that the country's problems can be only overcome if its leaders have proper wisdom and dauntless courage. We must be living examples. On establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land, he emphasizes the paramount need for the country's leaders to change. If the leaders become wise, the entire country will change. Bringing peace to the land ultimately hinges on a leadership revolution. A revolution in the hearts and minds of leaders themselves. Are we all leaders? Yes, we are. So he's talking about what we got to do here. The calamity of foreign invasion would never have occurred in the first place, in Nichiren's view, had the country's rulers promptly heeded his advice and governed the land in accord with correct principles. But not only did they ignore his warnings, they actively persecuted him. And even after the Mongol forces attacked, the rulers were incapable of making the right decisions for the country's future. Amid these circumstances, Nichiren deliberately conveyed to his followers his unshakable confidence that Kosen Rufu can definitely be achieved. Now think about that. He's talking about definitely we can achieve Kosen Rufu at the same time that he's been exiled and most of them have quit. I mean, no give in to this guy. Even while living at Minobu, he wrote tirelessly proclaiming the correct teaching with an indomitable lion's roar. And that's the only reason why we're reading it and able to practice it now. Because of his spirit as a human being, which we can instill in our own lives. In this writing, he states that if the Mongols were to attack again, people throughout the land would likely open their eyes at last and realize that he had been right in his assertions and embrace faith in the mystic law. This is in accord with the principle that when great evil occurs, great good follows. Because grave slander of the law pervaded the entire country, the great correct law was sure to spread. Nichiren declares to Nichimyo that there would surely come a time when those who refused to heed him would all join in chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, even the Nimbutsu and Zen schools adherents. On rereading this letter, I am again impressed by Nichiren's painstaking efforts to always explain the supreme Buddhist philosophy from various perspectives to his women followers, thereby demonstrating an egalitarianism far ahead of his times. His writings can be seen as teaching a sound view of self, of life, of society, and of the universe for living a valuable and meaningful existence. He explains Buddhist principles in history, clarifies what is true and erroneous in terms of doctrine, indicates the supreme worth and nobility of each person irrespective of gender, and teaches a philosophy of transformation. Consistent with his assertion that there should be no discrimination between men or women from the true aspect of all phenomena, Nichiren strove to give all of his followers an unsurpassed education. The objective of Buddhism is the happiness of all people. In terms of war and conflict, it is mothers and children who suffer the most. I cannot forget my own mother's crushing grief when she heard news of my older brother's death in the war. The foremost duty of Buddhists is to create a safe and peaceful world for mothers and children everywhere. Toward that end, we have to change the fundamental nature of human society, moving away from a culture of war and greed to a culture of building peace. And women can play a central role in this process. When women of great courage, optimism, and wisdom join together, society will change profoundly. When a united force of fearless women emerges, the times will change dramatically. When women with rich sensitivity and deep compassion of nurturers and protectors of life rise into action, human society will be transformed on a fundamental level. That's all we're waiting for, girls. Do your thing. Buddhism is a teaching for fostering genuinely, again, he says it again. Buddhism is a teaching for fostering genuinely awakened people. Men and women, young and old, who are capable of translating ideals into reality for the happiness of themselves and others. Each person's victory contributes to the eternal flow of Kosen Rufu. We're in the home stretch. When I was about to be beheaded from the Gosho, when I was about to be beheaded, the world-honored one of great enlightenment took my place. It is the same in the present as it was in the past. All of you are my lay supporters. So how can you fail to attain Buddhahood? Really, duh. In a passage in the Teacher of the Law, the 10th chapter of the Lotus Sutra states that those who uphold the Lotus Sutra are supported by Shakyamuni, who will carry them on his shoulders. Based on this, Nichiren Daishonin declares that Shakyamuni protected him by taking his place at the time of the Tatsunokuchi persecution. Just prior to this passage, he related the legend of how Kumarayana, the father of Kumarajiva, was carried safely on the back of a statue of Shakyamuni. It is the same in the present as it was in the past. Nichiren says, emphasizing that whether in the past of Kumarayana's time or in the present of his own time, the principles of Buddhism are the same, and genuine Lotus Sutra practitioners will be protected. And he proclaims that according to the same principle, Nichimyo will be kept safe by all Buddhas and heavenly deities throughout the universe and will attain Buddhahood without fail. Nichiren stood up alone and initiated the struggle to bring peace and prosperity to the land by establishing the right ideals and principles of Buddhism. Many humble, ordinary people, including female followers like Nichimyo, joined him in that endeavor. And we are carrying on this noble struggle today around the globe. People who stand up for their convictions are strong. They will never be daunted by storms of persecution. Count me in on that one. The renowned French writer Victor Hugo declared, no matter what momentary tyrants may do, they are opposed by the eternal essence. And there is no position higher than giving one's life for the sake of justice. He also said it is time for the human conscience to awaken. Come, consciences, up. There is no position higher than giving one's life for the sake of justice. He also said it is time for the human conscience to awaken. Come, consciousness, up. Wake up. It is time. The foundation of worldwide Kosen Rufu has been firmly secured. People everywhere are waiting to encounter the inspiring ideals of Soka humanism. The victory of each of us is becoming increasingly important. The victory of each of us will contribute to the eternal flow of the great river of Kosen Rufu. Thank you, and see you next week to finish this.
Thank
Good night.
you.